Hi, everyone. It's Lydia with Avanti Creative Marketing. And today I'm excited to introduce you to my guest. I'm here with Federico Marquez. Hi, Federico.
Hey Lydia, how are you doing?
Good to have you on the show.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. So, let me give y'all my own little introduction of my guest today, and then I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about himself, more in depth about who he is and where he comes from. So, basically, Federico and I have worked together totally over the last couple of years, 13 years working together. But 8 of those years, from actually 2008 till about 2016, we worked together on a project and a business that he was co-founding and starting. So I'm proud to share that we worked together on a successful brand named Ruggles Green. And he was the concept creator, the business plan writer, and a co founder. So he had two other partners and a few investors to support the mission. So we want to give a shout out and appreciation to everyone. I want to mention that to be a successful brand, it does take a village and you do need a team. So
Wow.
we want to first give a good mention that we had a great culinary team as a part of this venture. We had an excellent in-house staff that took care of the customers, kept them having a great experience when they would visit, and then that encouraged them to want to return. So everybody played a role in making this brand the wonderful experience that it was. But we're going to talk today about the roles that we played because Federico and I worked together to make the marketing and the customers happen to get them into the experience for the food and the house to take care of them. So today's conversation is to get to know Federico, get to know me, how we helped a brand become a $16 million revenue stream in 8 years, ultimately to be desirable and purchased by a private equity company in just 8 short years. So let's start the conversation off by getting to know Federico a little bit as it relates to this particular brand that we're talking about today. Okay.
Sounds good.
Federico, introduce yourself.
Hey Lydia, no, I'm Federico Marquez. It's funny, I'm a former scientist, never thought I'd be in the restaurant industry. And it was really because my wife was diagnosed with celiac disease that all of a sudden I started learning more about food and food allergies and nutrition. And it was because of what I was learning through her efforts, actually, and buying a lot of food at Whole Foods at the time, that it was, we thought maybe there's a need for others that have food allergies to go to a restaurant. We just moved to Houston in 2007, and there was really no place for us to eat anywhere. I was looking for organic. She was looking for gluten-free because she was diagnosed with celiac, and we really had no place to eat. So that was where the idea first started generating. Hey, maybe there needs to be a restaurant that can cater to food allergies, especially my wife's celiac. So
Back then.
back then, yeah, because there was nothing. When we moved into Houston, there was zero organic food anywhere, zero vegan food anywhere, zero gluten free, never even heard of it. And there was also zero certified green restaurants or any restaurants that were focused on sustainability. Everything was styrofoam and takeout.
And contributing a lot to the waste of the
Oh, yeah.
world, right?
So my background was really in science and sustainable technologies. So I was very interested in a certified green restaurant because I had heard of the ones that were coming up in the East Coast and West Coast. But really, the main driver was my wife's celiac issue, and just trying to find a place that had good food to eat. I mean, there was literally no place you could go to for anything gluten free. You had to explain it to the restaurant, explain it to the staff, to the chef, to the manager. They had no idea what we were talking about back then. Of course, now I think that the success that we had with Ruggles Green really elevated that idea and that concept. And I think everywhere you go now in the United States and probably worldwide, everybody knows what gluten-free is and has a gluten-free menu of some sort. So I
Yeah.
feel like we contributed greatly to that.
Yeah, definitely. So your role in the Three Partners segment was you were responsible for, you can tell me, actually tell the audience, what
Sure.
were you what did you have to keep your eye on as a partner?
My main focus was making sure that our brand was executing really well. And so one of the things I did was I took care of all the documentation to make sure that, hey, we had consistency at every single location, and also making sure that we were at least a minimum of a 3-star certified green restaurant. They're really shooting for 4 stars. That's the highest level that you can achieve. So my goal was to make sure the brand identity was there, handle all of the marketing, especially grassroots and community-based
Getting
marketing,
the customers in the door,
bringing the customers in, getting
sales.
butts in chairs. That was the thing. We're getting
Yeah,
butts in chairs,
sales.
getting sales. And obviously that's why we met and we reached out to you and all. But the other part was just making sure that the brand was consistent everywhere we went, and that we definitely got our certified green certification at every location, and we had procedures in place, and everybody was trained, so there was consistency of not just the food that we were producing, but also the identity that we were promoting to that community.
Yeah, and I just want to mention to those who don't know what a 3 or 4-star certified green restaurant is, there's an entity, an association that measures how sustainable you are in your business practices. This one happens to be restaurants, I guess hotels and things like that. And you can, by the more things that you do to be sustainable, you get points. So to be a 3-star or a 4-star, give us an idea, Federico, how many actions and steps did somebody have to do on a consistent daily basis to tick off a checklist that we do that? Is it like 300 for a 3-star?
Yeah, for example, in order to be like a 2-star, you might have a minimum of 100 points.
Okay.
And a 3-star, you might be at 180 points. And then a 4-star, you have to have like 300 points.
Yeah, I remember it was like 400 in order for us to become
the greenest restaurant in the world, which was what we were shooting for, and we were for 30 days.
Well, the USA.
In the
I have
USA.
a shirt that says greenest in the USA,
Yes.
and I think it lasted for 30 days until somebody did one thing more than we were doing to make that possible.
They built a very expensive restaurant with all kinds of cool things, but you know, recycling was a requirement, and that might have given you X amount of points for, you know, whatever you were recycling. The reuse of silverware, not disposables, that gave you other points. Low flush toilets, low flow water cleaning systems, and the little areas where you're cleaning your dishes. Energy efficient appliances,
dryers, hand dryers instead of paper towels.
Yeah, so there was all kinds of steps that we could take and build out materials, you know, more sustainable materials, insulation, energy efficiency, hoods, and all that. So there was a variety of steps, but I made sure that we had a plan, and we were just, okay, at every location, this is going to be a 3-star, or this is going to be a 4-star, and this is what we're going to do. But at the same time, food was a big part of that. So are we sourcing locally? Are we recycling? Are we composting? How do we prepare this? Or is all of our equipment energy efficient and Energy Star? And obviously, one of the big things we talked about was the green might get them in, but the food and the service better be top notch, or else they're not going to come back.
Right.
So that was a big part of my job, was to make sure that all those 3 things were in alignment.
Yeah. I want to just wrap up this one part about the green aspect and move on to getting the customers, just to make this an efficient conversation. But I want to just mention to people that the smallest little detail, like, do we do ketchup in little packets and everybody gets a to-go packet, or a little ramekin at the in-store level? Or do you provide a bottle of ketchup on the counter where people can all use the same bottle? And so that was part of not using little single-use plastics for,
Right.
yeah.
We never had any single use anything, so that was good.
Yeah, we try. And even with like the silverware, we would ask, do you need silverware? Instead of automatically putting the plastic silver, or actually they were biodegradable a lot of the
Yeah.
time.
In
So
fact, at the time, we had the biggest problem we had back then was just sourcing everything because these things did not exist. There were no biodegradable flatware or biodegradable compostable takeout containers. You see them everywhere now. But
yeah.
back then, all you had was styrofoam and plastic. That was it.
Yeah, so we came a long way, baby. So let's get into what people want to know. The conversation of getting noticed, getting customers, and getting profitable. People are going to want to know. Let's jump to, how long did it take for you as a restaurant, as a startup, to become profitable?
It took us a little bit over a year. I mean, we were definitely, and we even got to the point where we would literally ran out of cash and we're like, wow, we better have a really great weekend this weekend or else we're not going to be able to make payroll next week. We were
Yeah,
that
it got
worried.
tight.
It got super tight. And fortunately, we had a really good weekend. So we were able to do that. So that happened a couple of times. And then before things really started picking up and then we started accumulating cash. It was like, oh, we're profitable. Yay, we made a few $100 this last couple of weeks. Oh, now we made a few $1,000. Now it's like, oh, now we made 10 or 15. So it took a while before we could start accumulating cash and always have enough on reserve where it's like we can take care of any kind of surprises. It's no problem. And we can start making regular distributions. But the first year was every store is different. Some stores got profitable really quick. Our first store took a little bit over a year because it was the first time we had ever done this. But I would say after about 14, 15 months, we felt like, yeah, we're in good shape. No problem.
Yeah. So let's move into the marketing conversation, which is where I wanted the basis of this conversation to be about for anyone who's curious about how to get noticed, how to get customers so that you can be profitable. So let's talk about the question, how to get customers. How did we get customers, Federico?
Well, I think the first thing we did is we sat down and we talked about our brand and what about our brand was unique or different and who that brand would appeal to. So, for example, we knew that, hey, my wife had celiac, and I went and did a search and said, how many people in the Houston area might have this? So we said, hey, let's go to the gluten-free groups or the celiac group. Back then, there were no gluten-free groups, but there was a celiac group. And we reached out to them and let them know what we were doing, that we were there. But we also knew that, hey, we had an environmental brand, something that was going to be a certified green restaurant. And that would probably appeal to people with the healthy lifestyles. And also we had organic options and vegan options that nobody else was offering.
Yeah.
We sort of targeted it. But I think the big thing for us was reaching out to the local community and finding out who would we appeal to. And then we went out there and started talking to those groups and trying to get them in the doors with some good marketing.
Right. So know your audience, know who you're appealing to, and then go out there and get in front of them to communicate your message to let them know that you have something they might be interested in. And when they come and find out that, yes, indeed, you do offer something they're interested in, you've got to retain them to get them back in the door. And how are you going to get them back in the door? The only way you can do that is if you have a way to communicate back to them. So how are you going to communicate back to them? You have to set in place email capture programs. You need to engage them through writing reviews for you. You need to, maybe you have a bounce back to get them, maybe on your ticket, you have a way like come back for 10% off during these times. Maybe you pick like a slow time period where you want to offer that. There's a lot of different ways that people can get your customer back in the door. But if you don't have a way to contact these people nowadays, this was not the case in 2008, but nowadays you can capture people will willfully sign up for your text messages, to get text messages back. And actually, that's a very good form of communication because everybody has their cell phone. But also, people do not give email credit that it is due. And back in 2007, I started an email that's where Avanti came from. I started with email marketing because I had a background and working for an email marketing software company. And I saw the vision of how email capture can communicate to your customer. And so I just want to mention that in order to be growing and expanding, you always want to be open to new technology and open to new ways of doing marketing. And we were one of the first companies to launch our brand, Ruggles Green, was the first Groupon to launch in the city of Houston. At the time, they only had 15,000 emails in their email database. And now I think if you asked them, they probably have 3 million of Houston emails in their database. And we were open to innovation. We were open to technology. Federico gave me leeway to vet everything, check everything out. And then I would approach Federico and pitch what my opinion was about this particular way of doing it and what the results would be. And then he ultimately was the decision maker and seeing if it made financial sense for us to use that technology. Right, Federico?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then actually you brought in a really good creative group because you knew that, hey, even if we send them an email, it has to be colorful. It has
appealing.
To be bright, it has to be very appealing. And it should have some sort of call to action. It's like, oh, hey, we have this special going on, or we have this new offering that we have, or hey, there's a free dessert during this, Valentine's Day special or something like that. But once that appealing nature, it's not just a boring email. It was very colorful and it was actually very pleasant to look at. So we invested a little bit more in getting that creative work done, but it always paid off. We could look at the numbers and see.
Yeah. And speaking of like email capture, I brought some of our old little ways of getting email capture. Nowadays, guys, you can do all of this digitally. You do not even need to produce a lot of paper. However, this was good front facing. So if the customer was in store and they would see this in like a little card holder, it said, share your wow experience. So we were actually wanting to make sure that they were giving us good reviews. And so we were being suggestive that we want to hear about all the good experiences. And we know, and we posted, here, go on Facebook, go on Yelp, go on TripAdvisor or Google, wherever we want to a review, go on there. This was a way to spark that opportunity. But nowadays you can actually get them by sending, if you just ask them for their email address, you can send them a link directly to doing the review. And then this technology that I utilize today is a way to actually capture anything that might be negative. And that was the role that I played at Ruggles Green, was communicating to the customers when they might have had a review challenge. How do we turn something that happened in the store that was unfortunate? Maybe it was a service person's day, having a bad day or something, or maybe the food wasn't just perfect and we had to do some work to transform maybe a negative experience into a positive one, just letting them know that we cared and that their experience was important to us. And so I really encourage anyone who has a restaurant to make sure that they put their review responses as a priority. That's a really big part of your marketing piece. And that's the not so expensive one too.
Not at all. I mean, we trained our staff. If people were raving about it because they love this or they love that, I said, give them one of those wow cards right away. So they would take it and it would be top of mind and they would write a review. So that was a big one. But we also, when we trained our staff, even in our employee handbook and new employee onboarding and repeated training, it was always at the the first page on our handbook and the last page on the handbook says, customers must always leave happy. No matter what it takes, you better make sure they leave happy, because one happy customer might tell 10 or 15 other people that he knows, but one very unhappy customer can tell 100 people that something didn't go right. So you better make sure whoever's there, they've taken the time to come to your restaurant, they're going to leave happy. So do whatever you got to do. We give you the authority to make sure they leave happy. So
yeah, and I want to remind to have the discussion for us is that we did a survey after our third location. We did a survey and we wanted to know, how did people ever learn about our brand? And the number one, what came back, of course, they heard about it in different ways through whatever marketing we were doing. But the number one way that people had heard about it was through word of mouth. So we understood that putting a lot of energy into customer satisfaction, customer enjoyment would mattered, because they were going to be our biggest marketing engine. No matter what we would do, that would be still the most important, right?
No, absolutely. In fact, I met with a group once that came in from Florida to visit. And one of the ladies there, I was talking to her, got a phone call, and she was talking to a friend of hers who was a flight attendant. And the flight attendant was on the phone with her and said, oh, if you're in Houston, you've got to go to Ruggles Green. It's like blah, blah, blah. And she goes, well, I'm here right now, and I'm here with one of the owners, the founder. And she's like, oh my God. So it was rather ironic, but yeah, that word of mouth was definitely a big, big plus.
A big piece. Okay, good. So let me see. We basically talked about how to get them back. I do also want to mention that I recommend that email is the priority to communicate to your customers, because a lot of people don't understand about social media. Sure, you can get a lot of followers, but unfortunately, you don't control the follower experience. If Instagram or TikTok or Facebook changes, you've lost all that opportunity to touch that customer. However, with an email address or a text message reminder, you have instant access to drive traffic just by sending out a message and instantly hitting your bottom line right away. But you can't do that with Instagram or Facebook. You got to pay for an ad now just to get in front of your own followers. So it's very limiting, and you want to put social media as the third priority when it comes to email is king. The reviews are next, because that's how people decide if they're going to show up and try you. They check you out via reviews, and then reach out. You've got to be in the community. You've got to be present. You have to be social. So utilize the social media as a way to get expansion and to be showcased, and to allow your customers who are sitting in your restaurant to be your marketers, because they're uploading their food, they're uploading videos and fun things that are telling people where they are, and they get to tag you in those photos and or videos.
Lydia, even with some of our stores, every one of our managers we had a bonus program for our managers, but the reviews and the review rating, let's say a Yelp review or some of these other reviews, if they didn't make above a certain review,
like 4.5,
then they would not be eligible for their bonus.
Wow. So they encouraged.
Oh yeah. It's like, we're not just telling you that the customer must always leave happy. We're going to grade you on it. So
yeah, that's good. I didn't know that. That's interesting. I didn't know y'all had that in place. Okay. So my last question, and we'll wrap up this conversation, is how do you sustain longevity and keep the customers coming back for years and years and years? Because You can be a hot ticket in the beginning, right, Federico? You can be really great and have a lot of hoopla and have a lot of fanfare. How do you sustain it to be a viable, profitable business that's desirable?
Yeah, for us, we knew that there's always a honeymoon period when you open. People were going to try you out, they learn about you or whatever. So for us, it was two things primarily. One of them is consistency, the consistency of experience, preferably a good experience, a great experience. Our emphasis was on a wow experience, but definitely consistency in the experience that they're getting. Another part of it was convenience and making it convenient for them to order and all that. But the last part was community, making sure that they felt like we were part of their community. And that meant grassroots marketing, being top of mind, knowing that, hey, this is my go-to because I know they cater to me and they'll take care of my food allergies or my environmental awareness issues, or just they always have great food and a great atmosphere there. So, and I feel like they're a strong part of our community. I used to tell our guys that, hey, if I were to tell you that a Walmart was coming into your neighborhood, you might not get so excited. But if I tell you a Whole Foods is coming in, like, oh, everybody was excited because it's a whole. I said, we need to be that Whole Foods experience in the restaurant industry. We want people to want us to be part of their community. So, but really, definitely knowing your community and reaching out and marketing to them, working with them, and then they know that you're always going to be consistent in what you do. That was a big part of it.
Yeah. And that was the role that you placed on me as the marketing director, to connect with the community, be in front of that community, and be able to support them. I was an extension of the brand in the community as the community engagement. And I'll give an example here. So we would create little cards like this where it said 10% off each visit. Okay, each visit. But we had some rules of how you could use it, like what the exact exposure was. I mean, this was up to 4 people. There were some limitations. But if you can see here, we were partnering with the gymnastics organization right here in the community. This was Discover Gymnastics, and what they were all about. It says exclusive offer for members of Discover Gymnastics. They got these cards to put at their location because they were teaching exercise and movement and activity to help young children stay healthy and active. And we wanted to align with organizations that understood what we were about and what we were providing. We were providing a better quality food offer, even in our children's menu items, right? We were always looking for the better quality option. And you know what? It might have been a niche market, but it was enough niche to be a successful business and brand. So don't be afraid of niching yourself a little bit, because Federico used to teach me that if 5% of the population is being underserved and you serve 5% of the population, then that's a couple of million people. Right? That's enough to be a niche, right? Like, and still have a successful business. So one thing we didn't mention is we really knew that our customer was coming from about 3 miles away or less. So we really focused on that radius around our stores to really, really support the 3-mile radius. I mean, yes, people came from 4 and 5. Heck, I just drove 15 miles to go to my favorite restaurant for lunch today. So it depends on an individual, but I guarantee you, I don't go there every week. I go there once in a while. But the restaurants that are within 3 miles, I do visit on a regular basis and a regular experience. So focus on your community, give back to your community. I think we raised money. Remember, we wrote a check for Discover Gymnastics and donated to them because they were a nonprofit. I remember we were part because I remember taking a picture of you, doing a check back to them for some community fundraiser thing that we participated in. So anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to share. I had a thought about the sustaining longevity, and while I was talking about the Discover Gymnastics, I forgot what that was, but it popped into my head when you were talking about community and supporting the community. But basically, the niche, the community, the proximity to the location, these are all things you need to consider. Oh, I know what it was. And I learned this actually more recently, but then I thought about how it applied to my experience at Ruggles Green. But this public speaker, motivational speaker, was saying people get behind brands based on their mission. So you want to get your audience who is behind your mission. They're the ones who they will be the loyal customers, and they will be the ones who support you, and they'll soar with you because they believe in what you believe in. And so our customer cared about their quality of their food. They cared about, being catered to for all their different food allergies, because we modified. Federico, what did you used to say? How many modifications did we have in our register?
Oh my God, we had so many. I mean, once we started talking about food allergies, by the way, that was a big part of our training for all of our staff. They had to know about food allergies. But we might have had easily 50 different modifiers in there.
Remove this, add that,
or add this. Our number one, of course, was gluten-free. They said, and we want it gluten-free. So I think that dispelled a lot of the questions we had from some of our associates, like, hey, is that going to be a market? I said, well, that button gets pushed 300 times a day. I'd say there's a need for it,
Do we need that?
They're asking for it. We're pushing a button.
They deserve to eat too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Eat out.
It was my wife's favorite place.
Thank God, the world has evolved to serve everyone. So we want to encourage you that if you have an idea or if you have a business thought, go for it. Follow your dreams. Try to make it happen. The world is changed by the individual who sees a need. And I remember, I want to share this, is that when I was like 10 years old, the man across the street was a multi-million-dollar. He started one of the first car washes in Houston, and it was Dr. Gleam Car Wash. And he was always happy coming home. So when I was over at my friend's house across the street, he would play with us. And one time he said, Lydia, if you can solve a problem, you have a business. And so my brain from 10 years old has always been wanting to solve problems. And so it's been fun supporting organizations and companies who are solving problems and making the world a better place. And my favorite quote is, be the change that you wish to see in the world. So if you have an idea or a thought, or if you need support on an idea or a thought, reach out to me. And I have a support team who can help y'all figure out what you're working on, and we'll see what we can do for you as well. So, Federico, do you have any final words of wisdom that you want to share with anybody listening that feels maybe like their idea's stupid? Because I know you come up with a lot of them.
Oh, I hear that a lot. It's funny. They used to say, it's a long story, but they used to say that he's too dumb to know that any better, because it's so hard to do it. But sometimes you got to start somewhere, and it's really, you can have a great idea, but if you don't actually just start it or research it or pursue it, you may not go anywhere. But there's always problems that need to get solved, and you might have an excellent solution for it. So it doesn't hurt to look into it and see what you can do better.
Well, and we were just on a call earlier where we were talking about, I want you to mention what we were talking about earlier about how, part of success involves failure.
Oh yeah.
So don't be afraid to trip, to fall, but you learn from those failures. You learn from the experiences where you may not do it right. And what were we saying? Thomas Edison, was it 10,000 tries or was it 1,000 tries before
he might fail 1,000 times before he finally figures out one way that actually works.
Yeah. So
same thing in business. You're gonna have all kinds of failures before you there are a lot of failures before you move up. Then there's more failures and move up. But it's like riding a bike. You're gonna fall down a lot, but eventually you're gonna ride that bike.
Not only that, eventually with enough tries, one of those things is going to be successful. So just never stop trying, right? Is that how you become successful? It's just never stop trying.
That's a good way to keep going.
Hopefully you have a support team that's along the way. So
that's right.
Anyway, I appreciate y'all's time. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn or search for Avanti Creative Marketing on LinkedIn, and you can reach out that way. So we'll have another episode coming soon talking about what Federico's working on right now. That was when was 16? What was that? Like how many years ago? 7 years ago. 7 years ago. He started something else since then. So I'm going to have him back on the show, and we're going to launch when our Amazon store comes online. We're going to let everyone know. So y'all follow us and see what he's got up his sleeves now. All right.
Awesome.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Great, Lydia. Thank you.
See you later, Federica. Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.